Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about Inferno, written by Don Holton in his first Doctor Who script and directed by Douglas Camfield. However, he had a heart attack halfway through production, so uncredited, the rest of the story was directed by Barry Letts, the series producer. This story is considered by far one of the best Third Doctor stories, and in my opinion, it is the best Third Doctor adventure. This story is full of high tension, high stakes, and just overall a well-written story. It has a very great premise, but it might be let down a bit by some of the monster effects. But let me delve right in. So this 7-part adventure starts off with the Doctor basically working at a mining facility that's trying to mine the crust of the Earth to try and get to the molten stuff at the bottom of the Earth. And the Doctor's basically works there, but he's also using his own power to try and get the TARDIS to work. And he's working for a man called Professor Stultman, and he's this arrogant. He's basically the villain of the story. He's this arrogant, one-minded character that just his only goal is to get the mining done, and so he rushes production. He tries to do as much as he can to try and get it forward, and every time somebody tries to stop him, he's down their throat and tries to criticise them. He's a great character, don't get me wrong, but I think he's easily one of the weakest parts of this story. Not that he's a bad character per se, you see where he's coming from, that this is like a scientific achievement, and even the Doctor, one of the reasons the Doctor's working there is that he is fascinated by this scientific expedition of trying to break the crust of the Earth. But Stultman is a character we've seen 100 times before at this point. A leader character who his one-mindedness gets him into the trouble and makes him sort of the protagonist. Only in most other stories they kind of redeem him, but here, as the Third Doctor era is a bit more serious and adult, he actually becomes like the main villain of the story. So whilst this is going on, obviously the Doctor's working out a way to fix his TARDIS, and you get some really trippy scene where Liz Shaw helps him with the TARDIS, and he disappears into this strange limbo effect. And when the Doctor returns, he thinks, right, I really want to see what's on the other side of that limbo. So he tries to start that up again. But whilst this is going on, the Brigadier has some stuff to get onto, as one of the technicians on the place has started to murder people for seemingly no reason. And when they find him, he seems to be turning into like a green werewolf. Now, one of the biggest complaints about this story is the special effects in terms of the monster. And yes, it is pretty bad. It looks silly, it looks goofy, but I think the idea, the threat does still come off. It's just one of those things where it's like, right, you've got to put your mindset back in the 70s where the effects weren't as well polished as they are now. It's a bit more crude. But another thing as well is that the stunt work on this story is amazing. So far, in terms of like we had a lot of stunts in the Third Doctor era. John Pertwee has always loved doing his own stunts, and because now we're dealing with a lot of soldier characters, you get a lot of stunts with them getting onto planes and stuff and jumping off. But here, for some reason, they took an extra leap on it. Most of the story is set on this balcony with all these tubes and stuff, like a factory of some sort, and a lot of scenes take place there. And Douglas Camfield and Barry Letts do take advantage of this as much as possible by having so many of the unit characters and these werewolf characters fall off them, and it's just fantastic. And you get a lot of, there's even one where it seems like it's like 30 feet high. I'm not very good with measurements, so I could be wrong. That could be like overestimated or underestimated. But anyway, it's high, and you see him actually fall off, which is absolutely breathtaking, as a lot of effects in those days would have had just like somebody throw a dummy off the balcony. But no, they actually did get a lot of stunt people to work on this one. So it really heightens the tension. And so there's this whole mystery going on. We see earlier on in the story, the technician who starts murdering people, he touched like a green ooze that's coming out of the drill, and that's what's like infected him, and it starts to infect people. And when they touch stuff, it starts to burn. In fact, when they kill one of them, he's lying on the wall, and then he lies down, he lies dead, and there's like a burn mark on the wall. And I really love these villains. They're called the Primords, but they're never actually named on screen, only on the credits. And I really do like them. They're especially well written. They're just like, they don't have any dialogue. They're just like mindless beasts. But I love how, apart from obviously the goo, we have no explanation for them. It's not like they've gone, right, these are like a Silurian thing, or this has come from outer space, it's been buried for thousands of years, or something like that. They never give an explanation, and it really gives a bit more wonder into Doctor Who. You know, we'd have no idea why they're attacking. They seem to have intelligence, because these creatures seem to be attacking certain individuals that's getting in their way. And there's a bit where one of them is putting the heat up on the machine and then just standing there waiting for people to arrive so he can infect. So it's clearly more intelligent than just a brute creature, but there's no explanation for them. You never get it was this all along, that explains it, or they're aliens or something. We never find out what that green goo actually is. So that's one of the great things about this story. And in the documentary for the story, Barry Letts and Terence Dix, who was now the script editor for the series, they discussed that the story, they didn't think the story was strong enough with this concept. They thought that this story needed a bit more to be a 7-parter, because due to stuff that the previous producers set out for them, they had to make a 7-part story. And they thought that this script could only have enough for 4. I personally think it would have been good enough for a 7-parter, but that's just my opinion. And this whole idea of the mining corporation and stuff is actually based off a real world investigation, as at the time during the 70s, there was also an operation to drill onto the crust of the earth. One in America, I believe, one in Britain, and one in Russia. And then for no reason, explanation, I don't even think there's one given today, they both just stopped production, and it was the project was abandoned. I believe it's called the Moland production, the Roland project, and that was actually the working title for this story. So it has a lot of real world tensions and real world going on in this story. But like I said, Barry Letts and Terence Dix didn't think the story was strong enough. So they brought in another element to the story which really elevated this to being a great story with a great concept, this great fear factor, into something that is clearly well remembered, one of the best Doctor Who stories in history. We get the Doctor tries to use the TARDIS again and actually passes the limbo. And what he finds is that he lands on an alternative universe, the first parallel universe story, in which Britain is under a dictatorship, sort of like Big Brother from 1984. And here we get introduced to some characters that we've known and see like an evil version of themselves. Professor Stallman is now director. We get these two other characters who were in the main universe. I believe the girl's name is Petra and the guy's name is Greg. I find it really weird because Greg doesn't actually change at all. He seemed like the complete same guy, but Petra, she's a lot more in the real universe. She's kind and sweet, but she has to listen to Stallman. But in this one, she's a bit more aggressive, and I really like her alternative universe counterpart. Liz Shaw has now got dark hair, and she's like this military type. She isn't a scientist, she's a soldier. And instead of the Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, we get Brigade Leader Lethbridge Stewart. And fun fact, there's actually a running joke between the production of Doctor Who with, what's his name? Nicholas Courtney's eye patch as his alternate universe Brigadier version. Brigade Leader, he wears an eye patch. And on a joke on the set, when he turns around for the first time, all the cast members were also wearing an eye patch as a joke. And this guy, what a legend, he kept on acting as if nothing happened. And so that became a sort of running joke. In fact, it inspired a story plot in a Stephen Moffat story in which people can only remember a certain villain if they're wearing an eye patch. That's where that idea comes from. It comes from the behind the scenes jokes of Inferno. So there you go, that's something you might not know. Now, I really love this aspect. The Doctor basically meets up with everybody he's known. We also get Sergeant Benton as evil counterpart as well. In his first big Doctor Who role, he previously appeared in The Invasion and the last half of Ambassadors of Death. But here he's actually become like a mainstay role in the series. So there you go. And most of the story then is depicting this alternative universe. Although we do get scenes back on the main universe when there's been investigation into Stallman's product and how he's basically rushing things and putting everybody's lives at risk. And we get introduced to a character in the main universe, Sir Keith Gould, played by the brilliant Christopher Benjamin. For Doctor Who fans, that name might be familiar because he plays Henry Gordon Jago in The Talons of Wing Cheyenne and gets his own spin-off series. So this is actually his first Doctor Who role, so that's really cool. He doesn't have a lot to do, he's just sort of like a background character, but it is nice to see to see him younger than we fans know him of. But anyway, like I said, the story mainly sets now in a parallel universe, and in this universe, because of the more harsher environment, this drill is now further on in the production, and more of these creatures are starting attacking people. And there's a great scene in which the Doctor is in a cage, and in the cage beside him is one of these primords who attacks a unit soldier. I don't think they're unit in the parallel universe, they're something else, but I digress. And then the Doctor escapes because he, tricked the primord. Also as well, during these scenes, there are some great banter with the Doctor and these villain characters. One of my favourite lines is the Doctor, he's trying to talk to the Brigade Leader that he's from an alternative universe and that he could help. And then the Brigade Leader is like, if you're not... And then the Doctor says something like, don't you see, in this universe, I don't exist. And the Brigade Leader is like, well, that's fortunate. That means you won't feel the bullets when I kill you, or something like that. Very great, funny moment there. Also as well, during one scene, in a deleted scene, there's a bit where you hear a voice on the radio about all the dangers and stuff. And the voice is actually John Pertwee putting on a very funny accent on. But they cut that scene out. It's on the DVD, so that's really cool. And they drill more and more into the crust of the earth. And more the Doctor starts to realise there's a lot of danger on this and it could destroy the world. And tensions start heating up as the Doctor is constantly trying to get these, basically like a regime to try and stop the drilling. And like these people, because they're the more harsher versions, they definitely won't listen to the Doctor. And so the Doctor has to kind of like trick his way into the complex and trying to sabotage it as much as possible and try to get the people to understand, but obviously they don't. And it gets really intense. And then the drill crusts the earth and the world starts to blow up. It starts to get destroyed. And I think he says there's only a week left of the earth before it blows up. And the Doctor basically says there's no way that he can save this world now. It is doomed. There is no way. And it really sets the high stakes because now we see the dangers. We can see what's going on. And whilst this is going on, because of the heat, more and more primords are also coming alive. And more people are getting infected and getting more stronger. Which just heightens the tension more and more and more. And you just like... It gets a bit overwhelming by part 6. And there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of tension and action scenes as all the unit characters and the Doctor's trying to the Doctor's basically just trying to save himself at this point. He's like, right, this world's doomed, let me just get back. And a lot of tension as well comes from the evil Liz and the brigade leader, because the evil Liz basically starts believing that the Doctor, but the brigade leader basically thinks that, though he starts to believe him, thinks that the Doctor's just there to save his own skin. And we get a really great tension scene in part 6 in which the brigade leader holds the Doctor at gunpoint to try and take him back to his universe. Take them all back to his universe. And that version of Greg and brigade leader start fighting, and the Doctor is like, do you want to fight whilst the world is destroyed? It reminds me a lot of the scene in Survival. If we fight like animals, we die like animals. I'm sure he says animals as well. So, yeah, like I said, the tension just starts roaring and roaring. It's basically screaming at your face at this point. And in part 7, the Doctor gets back onto the main universe, our main timeline. And the production isn't that far ahead. However, there are some going-ons as Stallman has been infected. And he basically tries to heat up as much as possible. So he goes into the drill and closes it and starts basically speeding up the process. He's basically mind-controlled at this point. And so now, as an audience member, we know what will happen. We know the tension. We know what dangers this is. And if this proceeds, we are not going... There is a no-way scenario. So the Doctor has to stop this before it happens. And like I said, the intention, the atmosphere, fantastic. It's just building on building on building. Now here it's where it gets Barry Letts' directing. A lot of people can tell the difference. Personally, I can't. I think it was a seamless transition between directors. So take that as you will. And we get a lot of great tense moments as Stallman comes out and he's all hairy and stuff. And like I said, the actual monster effects is a bit dull, but the tension of it really gets through. And we get then a great scene in which the Doctor's basically destroying equipment and figuring everything out, and then slowly and surely then they proceed, and that's the end of the story. One of, if not the best Jon Pertwee story, mainly because of its high stakes and high standards. Yeah, so this is, in my opinion, I think this is one where I think a lot of new fans and people who've been introduced in 2005 might enjoy this one. It's got a lot more action and tense than most stories. Maybe the 7th part might put people off, but I think here there's a lot going on in each episode that I think it's worthy of a 7-parter. So that's Inferno. Fantastically written, fantastic. I can't stop praising this story enough. This episode might become really boring because I find that in these videos, when I'm just talking about my favourite Doctor Who stories, they tend to be the least interesting videos. So if this one's boring, I do apologise. Just, this is mandatory. Watch the Inferno. Highly recommended. Check it out. So join me next time where... Oh yeah, I forgot to mention as well. Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot about this. This is the last appearance of Liz Shaw. The actress didn't renew her contract for another season, and she never got a farewell. So that's a bit of a shame. Liz Shaw only appeared in 4 stories. Some of the best Doctor Who stories in the show history, in my opinion. And I think her is one of the reasons why this particular season got elevated to really high standards, because she seems much more mature. She seems much more like she's like a human being than a companion. And like I said in a previous video, she seems more like the Doctor's ally or counterpart or co-worker than a companion. So there you go, that's Liz Shaw. So join me next time. We get introduced to Jo Grant. We get the reappearance of the Autons, and we get introduced to one of the greatest Doctor Who villains in the show's history. So join me next time for the Terror of the Autons. See you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon.